Hello again, Steve here with a few more comments to hopefully add to my 6 views on the last video I had, which had to do with border walls as a growth industry. Now, I said this once again in the same video that I had a while ago. You can go back and look at it. I jokingly said this to somebody who I knew, but not so much jokingly. I actually meant it, but I knew it would be taken as a joke by him because he thinks that border walls are kind of crazy, even though he locks his door at night so that people can't get in who he doesn't want in his house. A little bit of a irony lost on him. But I said it not so ironically because he is an entrepreneur, and I said, a growth industry is border walls. I mean, we've had it. I built walls before. I built fences, chain link fence with barbed wire on top. There's lots of businesses like to put them around their, so people don't pilfer what they own or what have you. But more and more, you're going to have nation states, smaller nation states, bigger nation states, and so on, building up walls because their people are going to say, look, we have people wandering through here. We don't want wandering through here. And it's going to become more and more of a thing because the world has tried diversity. It's proving to be, as it has before in the past, proven to be a failure. And it's not a strength, unfortunately. I mean, I would love that to be the case. I love the diversity of people I get to speak to from all over the world. I just love learning about other cultures and so on and so on. And I walked 8,000 kilometers across the North American continent with a message of, look, if we're going to have freedom, we got to have peace. We can't be fighting each other. That never led to any kind of a freedom. That leads to more tyranny because the oligarchs who run the world, they want us fighting each other because then they can intervene and say, no, you got to have this rule and that rule, you got to, etc., etc., cordon us off and so on. Agenda 21, make, our streets in such a way that they can close us down and crowd control and all kinds of stuff. This doesn't lead to freedom. It just leads to more tyranny, is all it leads to. So, but I was talking about the example of South Africa. South Africa might be kind of on the vanguard of this, where I said we might wake up one morning and all of a sudden the whites in South Africa have cordoned off a piece of what was South Africa and said, you know what, we're gonna live here because it's not safe. There's too many of our farmers getting killed and the land being taken and their kids being butchered and cut up into pieces and stuff like that. And the politicians actually whipping people and encouraging people to do this. So we're gonna and when they do that, if they do it, in earnest, there will be some sort of a backlash from the main government of South Africa to prevent that from happening. So they're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to create some kind of a barricade. And in the short term, it may just be a white only army cordoning that area off, but eventually they might have to build a wall because they're going to have to prevent, invasions and so on. And of course, once they do that, it'll become very prosperous again because the whites in South Africa have proven to be able to create a prosperous society. And when it becomes prosperous again, the blacks will be doing everything they can to bust in there because they like anybody else, want to be in a prosperous area. They might say that they hate whites and so on, but wherever whites go, they want to come and show up, right? Because there's lots of good services, there's safety and what have you, right? So, and if this was to happen, I'm just going to make some comments as to what I would suggest. I would suggest that if the whites do cordon off an area, don't be so quick to just bring in the cheap labor that you're going to find that you think you can pay blacks, because you'll end up with then a mini South Africa, right? And now, where's that going to go? It's going to go down the same road eventually again because it's just eventually it's going to happen. So learn from the past. Do your own damn labor, right? Figure out ways that worked before. We used to be able to farm among our communities and create products for ourselves and the surplus that we have sell. Make a sovereignty association with the rest of South Africa that, hey, we'll grow some great produce and so on. We'll sell them to you. We'll trade over the border, but we're going to have a border control because we realize that living together for whatever reason isn't working. That's like, when people are in abusive relationships, they have a divorce. And sometimes it's for their own safety. And in order for them to talk back and forth, they might have to have some sort of an intermediary, some ground rules, right? And this is what might have to happen. So I would suggest do your own labor. Now, I would say that when you do this, the rest of the Western world is going to have the governments anyways, they're going to have a conniption fit. They're going to say, oh, this is evil, blah, blah, blah. So what I'm going to say is you're going to have to be well armed. You may have to make a deal with Russia. But do it at an arm's length, I would say, because might be the only ones who will trade with you. And what I would say is get together with whoever you can, finance it somehow, the Russian Navy, to deliver the weapons. Because if you just deliver them on a freighter or whatever, they'll be intercepted by the U.S. military. But if you have an armada of Russian ships sailing, the U.S. will stay away, right? Make sure they bring tanks, make sure they bring rocket launchers, make sure they bring enough weapons, sidearms, and the whole works that everybody in your new country is well armed. And make sure that is there. In your new constitution, you have the right to bear arms. You absolutely have the right to bear arms. There's no way the government can interfere with this. And you also enshrine in your constitution that you have the right to free speech, complete right to free speech. Everybody has that right. And that is the panacea to the tyranny that has gone on, I would say. So support free speech. And what else was I going to say? I would say that but that's just my opinions here. But I think this is a good example, and I'll put a link in the description below to this video that I just recently watched, which was in a way sort of a confirmation, I thought, of the prediction I had, which I didn't realize. This is South Africa Awakening is the name of the YouTube channel. This guy, I'm not sure the guy's name, but he does a good job of doing these videos, and he's talking about the active political movements within the white side of South Africa for secession. Absolutely mainstream within their society, and they have elections coming up, and this could be a referendum for it. So watch for that. And there is a definite growing movement, and I was just saying that out of a suspicion, but it seems like it's more than a suspicion. It seems like it's quite advanced in terms of what they're thinking down there. And I think they may have to do a complete hard break, because otherwise the ANC is just too strong, and the communists in Sweden and so on have financed them to the tune where they will stop at nothing to make sure that they eradicate the whites from South Africa, or at least in terms of their influence and in terms of their rights and so on, right? Because it's what serves them for whatever reason, because they don't have to reflect on their own failures. They just keep on blaming the whites, blaming the whites, blaming the whites, blaming the whites. But at the same time, we have to recognize that the whites might just, in fact, after having enough of them killed and brutalized and so on and mistreated, that they might just say, okay, enough's enough. We have to take care of ourselves, and we're going to cordon off a piece of area, and we're going to arm ourselves, and we're going to say, this is for us. We'll be productive. We'll trade with you, but we have to have this divorce in order for us to get along. And good fences are the only way that's going to make good neighbors. And this is what's going to happen, I think, more and more and more around the world. So coming back to what I said before, I think that border walls are going to become a growth industry. And what's the lesson from this? Well, there's an old adage. The old adage is good fences make good neighbors. And what is a border wall but a fence between one group of people who have a certain way of living, a certain culture maybe, and another who lives next door, who if they don't have a fence, then they don't really know where the border is, and people are going here and going there, and they don't respect each other's property. But whereas if there's a border, if it's clearly defined, then there can be a greater sense of respect, because now it becomes, over time, we realize, okay, that's yours and this is ours. So we have our side to take care of. You guys can take care of your side. And I think this is going to be a big, major growth industry, especially when we see that Overton window shifting back from more socialism over towards conservatism. And conservatism tends to be more along the lines of respecting culture and what have you. So that's the prediction, and whatever value you see in it, it's is yours for the taking. It's just an observation, and the lesson once again: good fences make good neighbors. Talk in soon. Bye for now.